All right, gentlemen, let's get into our YouTube portion. YouTube.com/front stretch. YouTube.com/front stretch. Make sure you subscribe for this happy hour portion. We are drafting our dream broadcast team, ladies and gentlemen, with Fox and NBC. The transition happening, obviously, starting next weekend. Not this weekend coming up. The weekend after that at Nashville, we go to NBC. As Massey illustrated, he said goodbye to Fox, who's his favorite broadcast team in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, what I will leave to our two, I guess, brainiacs and myself. You can use any current motorsports broadcaster.
No former ones?
No former. They have to be. How about this? They have to be alive.
I was going to go with Benny Parsons.
So I think like Alan Bestwick can be used. Obviously, I mean he does SRX, so that counts. But it can be in Formula One. It can be in IndyCar. It can be in NASCAR. It can be in SRX. But you're building your dream team, and you can pick them in any order you want. You just have to fill these slots. It is a play-by-play guy, and 2 analysts, and 2 pit road reporters. So each of us gets 5 picks. As I did the random number generator while we were doing this, Massey, you get the number 1 pick. Tom, right. You are second, and I am last, and it is a snake draft, so I get back-to-back picks.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I drew the luck of the draw. We're going to go with one of my favorite voices from my childhood, who is the heart and soul of SRX now, Alan Bestwick, is play-by-play.
Not shocked you went that with 1-1 right there.
So you said choice. That they have to be alive, right? Like, as long as they're alive, they're eligible?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I do my usual spiel, where I'm playing along, but, I have bias because, I've worked in the NASCAR TV community for several years. It's my jam, know a bunch of different people. So I'm going to try and take a little bit of a different path here as we're drafting, but still play along just as well. And for the number 2 pick, how could you not go if you're building a dream team with a guy in his heyday that was basically what brought the sport to so many different people? Like, how could you not go with Ken Squire? Like, if you give me that loophole for a guy that's still alive, if you give me a loophole for a guy that's still alive, I got to go with Ken Squire, right? Like, because without him, the sport doesn't grow. The sport doesn't grow on CBS. The sport doesn't grow everywhere else, right? Like, in his heyday, he was the guy. I mean, his call of the 79 Daytona 500 is still going to be legendary 50 more years from now. People are going to be watching that. So I think I got to go with him, right? Because the way that you put it together, like, I can't go with Bob Jenkins. He's not here. Can't go with Benny Parsons. He's not here. But I think you got to start with a play-by-play guy, and I think you got to start with the one play-by-play guy that, to be honest, started it all, even before Bob.
That's a good pick. That's a really good pick. Yeah. My first pick, and I think this guy's done a really good job since he's joined the booth, and I know I'm going extremely biased here. I'm going Dale Jr. as my analyst. Y'all left me play-by-play open. I'm going a different route with that, so I'll save that towards the end. But I get Dale Jr. I have versatility now with him because he's done play-by-play. I get, the podcasting side of this. Like, I'm getting really a 5-tool weapon, and I think Dale has done a really, really good job with this. And then I'm deciding to pair him with the crew chief. Like, I think Larry McReynolds is probably better at this role, but I think the chemistry matters in your booth, especially someone who's went to school with. And I honestly think he does a really good job as long as he does NASCAR. And that's Steve Letarte with my second pick. I know I'm going a little reach here with Letarte, but I think him and Junior work well together. I think you look at it, Dale and Steve are really good in the booth. I think he does a really good job for NBC. There's just, I think, one person that drags them down, which I will not be drafting. And I'm going with Letarte with my second pick. So I'm going NBC heavy here. So you might get a sense of who I prefer during the season of who's calling races.
Well, I'm going to go with. I was very torn as to what I would do here. I was blessed enough to work with Daryl Waltrip, and I know how good Daryl is. I really do feel like Daryl, especially because of what happened at the tail end of his career, got a really, really, really bad rap. I thought he was like one of the best analysts in this sport, but you have this whole like, well, if they're still alive thing going on, and I really had always wanted to work with Ned Jarrett. And you look at Ned and what he was able to do in the booth, both at CBS and ESPN and ABC. I mean, he was a guy that could slot in pretty much anywhere and had the right amount of analysis. You just see so many over the top people these days, especially in 2023, where you just have to have this like, Stephen A. Smith style crazy personality, it feels like, to break through. Ned was so like simplistic, yet just on point with his analysis. And, just another legendary call from when I was a kid, 93 Daytona 500, where his son won the race over Dale Earnhardt, is just something I'll never forget. And, I would have loved the opportunity to have worked with him. So I'm going to go with Ned.
Man, that was my next pick. Oh man.
Yeah, that had to suck too, because I had that whole preamble, and then I just had to steal your pick.
Yep, you did. All right, so I'm gonna steal your guy then that you hyped up, and go with old Jaws himself, DW Daryl Waldrop. That'll be my first color guy. Like you said, he got a bad rap, but for 10, maybe 15 years, he was fantastic in the booth. One of the reasons I fell in love with NASCAR was watching him in the booth. And I liked Boogity Boogity Boogity. A lot of people hated on it. I liked Boogity Boogity Boogity, especially as like a 10-year-old. I liked it. So DW as my first color commentator.
Well, as we look at it, before you give your third round pick, let's break it down. So you two guys already have filled your play-by-play with Alan Bestwick and Daryl Waltrip for Massey. Tom's gone with Ken Squire and Ned Jarrett. I've gone a little bit of a different route with the basically modern NBC booth of Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte. So far, so good. And Massey, your third round pick.
All right, so I'm going to kick off the Pit Road Reporter with the greatest ever. A guy who not only could give you all the news happening on pit road, but if you were to drop down and start having a mental or a health problem, then he could help save your life. He saved Rusty Wallace's life. He saved other people's life. Dr. Jerry Punch.
So I knew you were going to pick that. I started typing him before you even finished. Before you said he could fix you. I said, as soon as you said the greatest pit road reporter, I started typing Dr. Jerry Punch. So
there is no, like, it's him, and then it's a huge drop off to second place, right?
I miss him on, obviously, he was doing a lot. He was doing sidelines, I think, for ESPN for a little bit. It was kind of weird seeing him at college football games as I put my blanket on because I'm cold.
Cold in June. This is Trey Lyle, everybody.
It's because my house is cold right now, and I also live in the mountains.
All right, that's fair. So I'm going to go with, man, I should hold this pick, I think, because I don't think you guys will pick it. But, I'm trying to stay away from anybody that I've worked with because I feel like there's bias there. And
you can pick
I'm
them.
We work with those people again. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't want to like start those conversations. For the three people that listen to this podcast and go, well, why did you not pick me? But there is somebody that I always really wanted to work with that really I think it's overshadowed by Jerry, and I think that's John Kernan. And I think what John did on pit road, it wasn't just what John did on pit road, but like hosted RPM Tonight for so many years. And when I was a kid, RPM Tonight was that go-to. Before Twitter, before Facebook, that was where you would get all the news. It was Race Hub before it was Race Hub, and John did a fantastic job of hosting it. And I really liked the way that he was direct with some of his pit reporting. he was the yin to Jerry's yang, and that's what made ESPN so good. And so that's why I think I'm going to have John as my pick.
How do you spell that?
Oh God, John.
I knew that part. His last name.
Kernan. Kernan.
Thank you, sir. Hey, just trying to get things right, my friend. All right.
You probably still spelled it wrong. All right, so that's to Trey now, right?
It's my pick now. So I think I'm gonna save my play-by-play guy for my last pick because I'm gonna go very hot takey with it. I'm gonna go pit road reporter as well, like you two have. I'm gonna knock these two out. I'm gonna go with this. I'm going with the pride of Southwest Virginia, the graduate of Radford University, a man born in Galax, Virginia, like me. Now, I was not born in Galax, Virginia, but like me, was a Virginia Tech fan from birth. I'm going, the man has done everything. I'm going with the legend that is Marty Smith. Because he did pit reporting for ESPN. So it counts. So I'm going with Marty Smith.
He was good. I enjoyed him as pit reporter.
He did only do it like once, but he's a big loss to not be in the sport right now. I think he'd be excellent.
Yeah, him and McGee do like Daytona and a couple big races, and that's about it. So obviously Ryan McGee didn't do it, so that knocks that out. So it is my pick again, and so pit road. I have to go. That's hard. Bob Pockris. No, I'm just kidding. Bob. I should have done more research,
I can pick for you. I'll pick Kelly Stavich.
You know what? I'll go with a man who unceremoniously left Fox, and I think has done a really good job. I'll go Vince Welch. I think obviously his son is now doing it for NBC, but Vince was really good at pit reporting. I think he was a pretty good play-by-play guy in the Truck Series. He kind of, Fox just let him go this past year. So I'm gonna go with Vince Welch as my pit road reporter. I thought Matt Yoakum for a minute. I was between those two, but I'll go with Vince Welch.
So I feel like I'm going to end up with a super serious team, and I have to really think of who I want as my analyst because that's going to be the one pick I have open. Because
you have one pit road open, by the way.
Well, I'm about to pick the road guy, but I feel like this team might not be as loose as I would want it to be because I think one of the things that makes NBC so great lately is just their ability to be so serious and then switch it up at the same time and get loose at the right times. But Dr. Dick Berggren, another guy that was just so amazing on pit road, worked for ESPN in the early days, and then, bounced around and just like the epitome of knowledge and the epitome of respect. And, as a guy that has done a variety of roles in the sport, I also kind of like the fact that he's been able to jump into the writing side and then into the on-air side and just done a variety of different things and done them really, really well. So yeah, Dr. Dick Berggren, I think, is my pick. Filling out my pit road.
Man, this is another one. You're just stealing my picks tonight.
I may have peeked at your list. No, I'm just kidding.
So now I rounded out, right? I had to make my last two picks.
You have a pit road and an analyst left.
All right. So I'm going to get you with a little bit of a throwback here. This guy, he doesn't pit report now. He's in the booth now, but he used to pit report. He used to be the pit reporter for CBS. And back in his heyday, he was one of the best. Mr. Mike Joy. It'll be my other pit reporter.
Ooh,
So
technicality.
you're making Mike Joy a pit reporter? You're making him go back to the 80s?
We're going with 1979 Mike Joy.
Mike, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that my picks forced Massey into this spot.
We should send this to Mike Joy and just be like, "Hey, Mike, what do you think about this?"
He probably replied too.
He might listen. I'm actually being semi-serious about that. So I'm apologizing on behalf of all you guys for
Mike
get this
probably would.
call about this.
Mike would probably enjoy it.
Well, I'm saying it because I thought he was an awesome pit reporter back when he was a pit reporter.
Yeah,
So
I will break ranks and just quickly say that, Mike is every bit of like the epitome of like professionalism and nice guy and care about the sport in person than, as he is on the air. Just incredible guy to work with. Like I'm going to look back in like 30 years and be like, man, I worked with some of the great legends in the sport, and why was I too timid in my 20s, and why didn't I speak up more in meetings and try and learn from those guys, because they were just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and he's part of that team that brought NASCAR to the forefront in the early 2000s. And he's forgotten more about racing than I think the three of us had combined.
He also has the most iconic call in the sport. 20 years of trying. Like that is iconic. That is the most iconic call in the sport, right? Dale Jr. finally winning, or Dale Earnhardt finally winning.
Yeah.
It's the most iconic call in the sport.
What an incredible first Daytona 500 to be given, right? In the play-by-play role.
Yeah.
Because that was his first one.
And then his two quote unquote first Daytona 500s, that one, and then obviously the first one he did with Fox is will always be remembered too.
Yeah. Ken Squire's 79 one is up there as well. But there's a crash. There's a fight. All that. But anyways, I'll finish out my team. So I need another color commentator.
Wait, before I do that, I'm going to post what we have as we go into the final round. As mentioned, Massey has Alan Bestwick, DW, Dr. Jerry Punch, Mike Joy. Tom has Ken Squire, Ned Jarrett, John Kernan, and Dick Berggren. And then I have Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, Marty Smith, Finch Welch. I've decided to go younger. You guys have gone a little older, but it's all fun.
No, my last pick is going to bring down the average age of everybody. I'm going to go with the guy that isn't going to be like the color commentator next year, but he should have been Fox's color commentator this year. I'm going to go with the guy that unfortunately hasn't been able to race since midway through last year. But anytime he steps in the booth for a truck series or like a Coda, anything, he was remarkable. I saw NBC posted their top moments of the year so far on Instagram, and his call of Tyler Reddick winning, where he got emotional, was up there as one of the top moments so far this year. I'm going with Kurt Busch as my final color commentary.
Ooh, I'm shocked by that. You didn't want to go with the classic duo with Larry Mack?
I thought. Wait, you did? Oh yeah, you did. I was thinking you picked him. Dang it!
I picked Letarte. Do you want to change it?
Right. No. Let's go Kurt. I like the Kurt pick. Have Larry Mack in the next booth over or whatever, making pit calls.
Studio host, if we can add supplemental picks.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking through this, and I will say this: the pick that I'm making is more because I ended up with this sentimental group, right? That people most likely I will not end up working with again, that are legends in the sport. But if there's one guy along the same lines of Massey, with Kurt, that I'm pretty sure Trey's not going to pick because he's still racing. Who I think is going to be really good down the road, that's already done a lot in Xfinity, is Ryan Blaney. And I think Ryan's going to be really good in the booth. Should move to the booth when he retires. And I think he's going to be the type of guy that will loosen up a booth, because I was trying to think who can make this looser. But, I've already got a bunch of old guys there. I don't think one young guy is really going to make the difference. We saw that with like Jeff Gordon and DW late in DW's career. So I'm going to go with Dale Jarrett, because I would love to see, or would have loved to see, like Ned and Dale work like a few full races together, right? like as a father-son team, and Dale obviously shined in his own right at ESPN. Really, really cool guy. And, great in his heyday. And I think that's how I'm going to wrap up my team.
I like that pick, father-son duo. When Dale was talking about his dad at Darlington, you could definitely tell like the admiration he had for him, and I think Dale does a really good job in the booth. I think that was I like that pick, Tom. So my last pick, I am picking right now who is the best motorsports play-by-play person in the world. I am more entertained watching him call a race, someone who went to school for this, than anyone else. More than Crofty, more than Mike Joy, more than definitely Rick Allen. I'm going Lee Diffie for my play-by-play.
Wow.
I knew it.
Wow.
I love Lee Diffie.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the Australian accent, but when he calls the Indianapolis 500, he makes it like it's edge on your seat theater, but the way he is able to call that race, the intensity, the emotion he shows, it's incredible. And he's called NASCAR races before, and he's done a really good job with that. He does little things like always incorporating the team and the sponsor as he's talking about the car, which I think is really cool. Like it's, the little things he does in a race and the way he just kind of lets the moments happen. I'm going with Lee Diffie as my play-by-play guy. And I knew once you two selected your play-by-play guys first, I just had free reign. I could bolster the rest of my team. And I always believe chemistry in the booth, and Lee, Dale Jr., and Letard have all worked together before, so you have chemistry there already.
Yeah.
If we will, so I'm going. I've always said that NBC should just pick Lee Diffie over Rick Allen, but that might not happen. Rick Allen's not bad, by the way. I'm not trying to like bury Rick Allen as we do this. I just think Lee Diffie's that good.
It's funny that Lee Diffie ended up our last pick, but he's very close to being the first pick of this draft too. Like I was between him and Bestwick for the first one. So.
Well, and what's funny? I know Trey was being Homer with Dale Jr., but I've had this conversation with Massey at a personal level, just shooting the breeze like a couple times. I think that Dale Jr. could be an incredible play-by-play guy. I really, really do. I know he's filled in for Rick already and done a couple on NBC, but I think if he really put his mind to it and said, you know what, I'm going to drop the analyst stuff and just fully focus on being play-by-play, he's just one of those guys that I think does have natural talent, and he could pick it up and he could do it. And I think looking ahead, Mike Joy retiring here probably within the next, we don't know if next year is going to be his last year, of course, or not, but you would imagine that sometime within the next cycle, if Fox re-signs, I don't know if he's going to go full 10 years. He's in his 70s now. I don't know who we have in the pipeline for play-by-play, right? Like who would replace Mike Joy?
Adam Alexander's pretty good. I like Adam. But no, you're right about Dale Jr. He's pretty good. Hey, he's better than Kevin Harvick, the play-by-play, even though everybody is like, oh, Kevin Harvick's going to be the next play-by-play. But no.
You mentioned that, Tom. Like, I think Dale, like, obviously Dale is noted for his, like, first time where he's just yelling slide job, which he is, I think he's the perfect analyst, especially driver. He perfectly blends the kind of analyst we want to see, like telling you what's happening on the track, but the fan, because he loves it. Like, right. And one thing he's not afraid to do, like some other people who have connections, if his drivers does something stupid on the track, he calls it out. Like, and he said he will. We have seen in the past where there are maybe drivers for certain people that might not do that. So I give him credit there as well. So that is it. That's our final teams. Massey, you have Bestwick, Waltrip, Bush, Dr. Jerry Punch, Mike Joy. Tom, you went with Kinsquire, Ned Jarrett, Dale Jarrett, John Kernan, Dick Berggren. I don't know why I keep saying Dave. I went with Lee Diffie, Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, Marty Smith, and Vince Welch. Oh, and back to the chemistry thing. As told by Marty Smith to my face, him and Dale Jr. really close friends. So how about that? Even my team can call a race, and then we can have a gigantic party afterwards. So we're down for that.
Marty Smith name dropping. Who would have seen that coming?
Listen, I'm just so proud that Trey spelled all the names correctly.
I Google.
We're
I may or
taking
may
small
not have Googled
steps with
some.
Trey's grammatical career. This was huge for him.
I may or may not have Googled some before I put them on the list.
If
But
he
that will
spelled
do it.
Mike Joy wrong, we'd have a real problem.
But that will do it for this week's episode of the Happy Hour podcast. Gentlemen, enjoy the off week. We don't have any racing to talk about. You got anything coming out the rest of this week?
This Happy Hour podcast. Hey, but check out, just because NASCAR's off, we got plenty of IndyCar and F1 and ARCA coverage over on Front Stretch, so people can read our articles on that.
Yep, we're going to have a lot of Beyond the Cockpit interviews. We're going to be catching up on some driver interviews that we haven't been able to put out there early on in the year. There'll be a Did You Notice out for me at some point. This is usually the time of the night where I go to Massey. I still have 0 words written for Did You Notice? Can we do it at some point this week? So guess what? At some point, that 0 words is going to become 1,000. I have a couple things I want to talk about. And, we still have other stuff going on. Our open wheel coverage. I don't know if people know, FS Open Wheel. We have a new Twitter handle that's over 100 followers. And Marcus Erickson already retweeted one of our articles. So we're doing pretty good there. And it's an F1 IndyCar weekend this weekend. For those people that follow those series, we're going to have plenty of coverage.
And they're both on the East Coast. You can watch them at reasonable times. Well,
yes.
F1's in Canada, IndyCar's at Road America. So that will do it for this episode of the Happy Hour podcast. Gentlemen, cheers, salute, however you might finish your happy hour off. Thank you so much to our listeners for listening. For Trey Lyle at Trey Lyle VT, for Michael Massey at M_Massey22, for Tom Bowles at Tom Bowles. That will do it.
And NASCAR Bowles.
NASCAR Bowles. No, this drink is near empty.
Get uncanceled. Come back, please.
That will do it for this episode of the Front Stretch podcast. Cheers, salute, however you may finish your happy hour. As always, thank you so much. This might be happy 2 hours, but that's okay. For Trey Lyle at Trey Lyle VT, at M_Massey, that's Michael Massey, at NASCAR Bowles for Tom Bowles. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Happy Hour podcast.